The daredevil who changed technology. In the small town of Grinnell, Iowa, a 12-year-old boy and his older brother constructed a homemade glider with an ambitious 18-foot wingspan. Undeterred by obvious danger, they launched it off the roof of a barn, with young Robert Noyce at the controls. He survived the plunge and later wrote about this experience in his application to Grinnell College. This early display of fearless innovation foreshadowed the risk-taking spirit that would define Noyce's leadership approach throughout his career. That adventurous spirit never left him. Even at age 40, Noyce took up hang gliding, embodying the inventor and risk-taker mentality that Steve Jobs would later describe. My observation is that the doers are the major thinkers. The people that really create the things that change this industry are both the thinker and doer in one person. Welcome back to Leaders, a podcast dedicated to exploring the best leaders this world has ever seen, and your number one source for actionable business leadership insights. Episode 46 today will be on Robert Noyce. Robert Noyce, the visionary leader who helped shape what we know today as Silicon Valley, a co-founder into the company Intel, and many other leadership lessons folded into his career that we will walk through. So let's give a little bit of background. He was nicknamed the mayor of Silicon Valley. He was not just a brilliant inventor and an entrepreneur, but a transformative leader whose management philosophy and mentorship really helped define what we have today as the modern technology industry. The leadership journey of him: he co-invented the integrated circuit, he co-founded Intel, and he inspired generations of tech innovators, including Steve Jobs, who we will go into later on as far as how he helped shape his career as well. The first practical integrated circuit was invented by him in 1959, and it was one of 17 patents that was awarded to him. In 1968, he went on to found Intel with Fairchild co-founder Gordon Moore. He served as 6 years as president, 9 years as director, and 5 years as board chair. He was declared by some as both the Thomas Edison and Henry Ford of Silicon Valley. Henry Ford we covered in episode 6, and we can see some similarities between Henry Ford and Robert Noyce. So first, both leaders rejected traditional hierarchical structures and promoted egalitarian workplace environments. Ford eliminated specific duties attaching to any position, no line of succession or of authority, very few titles, no conferences, making individual responsibility complete. Noyce, similarly, was known to kind of roll up his sleeves, management style that rejected executive perks like reserved parking spots and private offices. They also demonstrated strong commitment to employee welfare. Ford famously raised the wages to $5 a day when competitors were barely paying $1, while Noyce treated employees like family and fostered teamwork. Both of these leaders understood that taking care of workers and employees led to better business outcomes. They were also both visionaries with exceptional innovation skills. Ford revolutionized manufacturing with the assembly line, while Noyce co-invented the integrated circuit and helped really establish Silicon Valley's innovative culture. They both shared a relentless focus on improvement, with Ford believing that everything can always be done better than it is being done. Their leadership styles in both cases were characterized by emotional intelligence. So Ford understood that saving customers money made them feel more valued. He was also sensitive to workers' financial and work-life balance concerns. Noyce also demonstrated that through his people-oriented approach and ability to inspire loyalty within his companies. They also differed in a few ways. Ford was described as dictatorial and autocratic, while Noyce was really known for his more collaborative approach when it came to management and leadership. Ford closely monitored employees' lives both inside and outside the workplace, where Noyce really just gave talented workers freedom to flourish. A lot of these learnings and leadership lessons that we will cover were found in the book The Man Behind the Microchip. So the journey begins when he's born In 1927, to a minister father and a former school teacher mother in Burlington, Iowa, his upbringing instilled a lot of different values of hard work, curiosity, and knowledge. After he studied physics and math at Grinnell, where a professor introduced him to the newly invented transistor, he became fascinated with semiconductor technology. That led him to MIT, where he earned his doctorate in physics in 1953. The Trittorius 8 and the birth of Silicon Valley. So Noyce's defining career moment came in 1957. He was frustrated with William Shockley's management style at Shockley Semiconductor Lab, and he drove him and 7 colleagues to make a bold move. Shockley, despite his genius, was an abrasive micromanager who regularly lashed out at his staff. Leading this wealth of talent that these 8 people had, Noyce and the Trittorius 8 founded Fairchild Semiconductor, establishing what would become the prototype for Silicon Valley startups. That watershed moment demonstrated his ability to recognize when leadership was failing and really take a bold, decisive action to create a better environment where innovation could flourish. There were some revolutionary innovations under his leadership, one being the integrated circuit. At Fairchild, he made his most significant technical contribution, co-inventing that in 1959. But what set him apart wasn't just technical brilliance, it was strategic vision. When others might have protected this revolutionary technology with high prices and limited access, he made a counterintuitive decision really to open it up. Noyce and Gordon Moore, his co-founder, began looking for a better way of connecting transistors. They came up with the idea of combining transistors in a solid block of silicon. This was the integrated circuit. He then took the bold step of pricing it below cost to stimulate market demand. That decision, as revolutionary as maybe arguably the technology itself, and that strategy accelerated the adoption and helped create the $214 billion chip industry. Intel is the next company that he goes on to co-found. So that really sets forth the microprocessor revolution. In 1968, he sought more direct connection to technical innovation, and so Noyce and his co-founder of Fairchild, Gordon Moore, left to found Intel. As Intel's first president and CEO, he initially focused on digital computer memories, but the company soon pioneered the microprocessor. Under his leadership, he became the driving force behind the personal computer revolution that would transform society. So a few different defining career moments there. He's living through the birth of Silicon Valley. He's founding these companies that Intel today is still around and a leader within the semiconductor industry. Let's dive in more to his sort of distinctive leadership philosophy. He really, a few different things. He said the job of a manager is to enable and not direct, and that speaks to some of the leadership style that we were hinting at before. Coaching, he says, is also the first quality of leadership and not direction. He only expressed really impatience when it came to working with employees and such when dealing with intellectually slow people. He loved to get barriers out of the way to enable people to do the things that they do well. The tendency to make suggestions, not commands, felt like he worked with them, but not for them. And that was kind of his leadership style of rolling up his sleeves, really being within the team, being very technical, being in the inner workings, really, of what was going on at his companies, separated him. He was a very good supervisor, I would say, of technical people. He really took a more casual approach to that and didn't interfere with their work, more laissez-faire in that regard of just hiring really good technical people and then trusting them in their work versus asking or intervening a lot. He thought of himself really more as a scientist and not really a businessman, And a lot of his background really points at that, and we can see similarities here to a lot of the other different leaders based on their backgrounds. Lisa Su, AMD, we covered on episode 26. She was a very PhD level background, I think also MIT. Jensen Huang, NVIDIA, he definitely had a technical background. A lot of these different founders first kind of are engineering or technical, very focused, but then bring that kind of expertise into a larger kind of like business and leadership position here. He led through command and control programs, but inspired voluntary cooperation of motivated people. The greatest strength as a manager was he gave people confidence in themselves. So he really did try to break hierarchy and a different Silicon Valley way of managing. He revolutionized the technology, but also the management philosophy. In an era when most East Coast businesses adopted a feudal approach to organization, he created something much different. The culture that he established eschewed the trappings of hierarchy, big offices, fancy dress, and an atmosphere of deference in favor of the shared pursuit of common goals. Journalist Tom Wolfe, in his celebrated profile, The Tinkerings of Robert Noyce, which he wrote in the mid-1980s, a kind of a profile of Robert Noyce, captured this revolutionary approach. Noyce's idea was that every employee should feel that he could go as far and as fast as in this industry as his talent would take him. He didn't want any employee to look at the structure of Intel and see a complex set of hurdles. Really pegging this as the manager as an enabler. So his leadership philosophy centered around enabling rather than directing the team. He believed the best way to get something done is to have enough confidence in yourself and your men to do it. That approach fostered innovation and employee loyalty, creating a culture really where talented people could thrive. In that management style, he emphasized personal appreciation and engagement with employees. Versus micromanaging, he encouraged the team to pursue their best ideas. He also famously told them to go off and do something wonderful. That phrase really was emblematic of the entrepreneurial spirit he helped to cultivate. A few of the other people that he worked with, one being Andy Grove within Intel, and in some cases, the success of Intel early was because they had complementary leadership skills. So Noyce and Andy Grove, I would view as almost opposites. Noyce had a wide-ranging vision versus Grove really had a precision focus. Noyce, they describe as focusing outward, or a nickname of Mr. Outside. Grove was on the day-to-day internally, Mr. Implementation, and Gordon Moore was Mr. Inside. So Andy Grove and Noyce had distinctly different leadership styles at Intel. Noyce was really known for his charismatic, people-oriented leadership approach. We've said treated employees like family, fostering teamwork, creating a very relaxed, collaborative environment. He was non-confrontational, often avoiding conflict, finding it difficult really to say no or fire some employees. The roll up the sleeves style rejected executive perks. He believed in giving talented workers freedom to flourish and maintained really a democratic approach to administrative and problem solving. Contrasting that is Andy Grove, who embraced constructive confrontation as a cornerstone of his philosophy in leadership. He fostered a culture where employees were encouraged to speak their minds and debate ideas openly. He was known for being demanding and exacting, with proclivity for confrontation that earned him the title of world's toughest boss in 1984. He also believed in the power of debate, conflict, to refine ideas and turn into their most effective form. He really meticulously picked apart proposals with little regard for the feelings of those who did it. Unlike Noyce's difficulty with confrontation, he would berate employees for laziness or low standard work. They also shared some similarities, though, despite all those differences. They both rejected executive privileges, maintained modest workspaces. Grove worked in a standard 8 by 9 foot cubicle, reflecting his preference for an egalitarian atmosphere. They also both valued innovation and empowered employees, though they approached that empowerment very differently. So together with Gordon Moore, they formed a powerful leadership trio at Intel. Noyce, again, as that charismatic visionary and people person, Moore as the technological thinker, and Grove as the action-oriented executor. So very complementary of each other there in terms of their skill sets and what they brought. His partnership, Robert Noyce's with Gordon Moore, demonstrated this understanding of really recognizing the importance of this complementary leadership skills. Where Noyce saw the big picture, Moore could discern detail. Noyce rarely set foot in the lab after 1965, but Moore had an intensely loyal following in R&D. That awareness of his own strengths and limitations made that partnership specifically very effective. Noyce, in addition to that, has ethical standards as a cornerstone. So according to Tom Wolfe, Noyce insisted on ethical behavior in all dealings with the company and between companies. At Intel, there was good and there was evil, and there was freedom and there was discipline. And to an extraordinary degree, employees internalized these matters. That ethical standard became a cornerstone of his kind of leadership legacy. Finally, the more human side of leadership. So despite all that professional success, Noyce was very much human when it came to his personal life, and despite all the success professionally. In the biography, The Man Behind the Microchip, he reveals that he got an early girlfriend pregnant. He couldn't quite quit chain smoking. He had a years-long affair that helped break up his marriage and caused his children great pain. Those personal struggles provided a more nuanced understanding of the man behind the legend. His difficulty also with work-life balance was evident. He would sit in his car after work, idling his engine, trying to think of a place he could go other than his home. That aspect of his life serves as a reminder. He did have a lot of different personal challenges, despite being a very visionary leader with that. So shaping the next generation, we mentioned that he was instrumental in guiding Steve Jobs. He gave him a lay of the land when Jobs was in his 20s and Noyce was in his 50s, and really admired his forever pushing people beyond what they thought their ideas could go. Was something that Jobs took from him. Perhaps his most famous sort of mentee was Steve. He reflected, Bob Noyce took me under his wing. I was young in my 20s. He was in his early 50s. He tried to give me the lay of the land, give me a perspective that I could only partially understand. He added, you can't really understand what is going on now unless you understand what came before, highlighting Noyce's role in connecting him to the industry's heritage and history. Their relationship was deeply personal. Noyce's wife, Ann Bowers, recalled, Steve would regularly appear at our house on his motorcycle. Soon he and Bob were disappearing into the basement, talking about projects. Noyce even answered Jobs' midnight phone calls, which invariably began with, I've been thinking about what you said, or I have an idea. Jobs described the relationship as almost more filial than professional. Recalling personal moments, I remember him teaching me how to ski better, and he was very interested, fascinated by the personal computer. We talked about that a lot. Supporting the next generation, so after he stepped back from daily management at Intel in 1975, he turned his attention to the next generation of high-tech entrepreneurs, serving on the boards of half a dozen startup companies and investing in many more. His commitment to nurturing future technology leaders extended beyond individual mentorship, as evidenced by the belief that in the importance of passing knowledge to the next generation. He also leaves a educational legacy. So Noyce's commitment to education continues through the Robert Noyce Teachers Scholarship Program, which provides funding to institutions of higher education to provide scholarships, stipends, and programmatic support to recruit and prepare STEM majors and professionals to become K through 12 teachers. That program seeks to increase the number of K through 12 teachers with strong STEM content knowledge in high-need school districts, extending his influence to future generations of scientists and engineers. Noyce's own mentors, so interestingly, while there's really limited information as far as who mentored Noyce himself, the physics professor at Grinnell College who introduced him to transistors appears to be a very early influence. William Shockley, despite their later disagreements, I think he also learned from him and may have initially served as a mentor figure, or just understanding not only a kind of mentor, just be someone who you look up to, or your boss, or someone of that nature. And it doesn't have to be all kind of, in this case, like positive. I think he learned from Shockley of what not to do and maybe applied that into when he started his own company and took those learnings. So definitely Shockley had a influence on him. Noyce was attracted to Shockley Semiconductor because of Shockley's more reputation of being a genius, so he learned from him. Another professional mentor was Bill Bradley. He was the head of transistor program. He was what Noyce called a white noise source with relentless, there must be a way attitude, and that was extremely encouraging for him. He adopted some of that management approach, always encouraging and explaining, already ready with a new idea if the original one threatened to fail. He did have in addition to some of this legacy and leadership impact, he's very much Silicon Valley's spiritual father. His influence on Silicon Valley extended beyond just the technology. That leadership philosophy, emphasizing flat hierarchies, meritocracy, risk-taking, and ethical business practices, became embedded in the region's DNA. As Tom Wolfe observed, people who run even the newest companies in the Valley repeat Noyceisms with relish. They talk about the soul and spiritual vision as if it were the most natural subject in the world for a well-run company to be concerned about. This cultural legacy may be as important as Noyce's technical contributions. When he died of a heart attack in 1990 at age 62, he left behind a transformed technological landscape and a leadership model that continues to influence innovators worldwide. So what can we take from the leadership legacy of Robert Noyce? That leadership journey that he took from the original story that we told, being a daring boy in Iowa, to the mayor of Silicon Valley, demonstrates how his management philosophy can shape an entire industry. The technical brilliance was matched by vision for a new kind of sort of corporate culture, one that valued innovation, flat hierarchies, ethical standards, and the nurturing of talent. Most sort of fitting summary of his leadership philosophy may be his own words to his team: go off and do something wonderful. We mentioned that before. That simple directive, though, encapsulates his trust in people's abilities, focusing on enabling rather than controlling, and the belief that given the right environment, people will create truly remarkable things. In an age where a lot of what we see from a leadership and the models that continue to evolve, his approach to innovation, organizational structure, and mentorship remain relevant and instructive. The integrated circuits he helped create may have revolutionized technology, but the leadership principles helped create the innovation ecosystem where today's tech giants were born and continue to thrive in Silicon Valley. So a lot to take from episode 46 here. Robert Noyce, definitely one to study, especially from a technology vein, as well as the lasting legacy he has had with a lot of those leadership philosophies that the Silicon Valley culture still has as its foundation. So thanks for listening to episode 46, and we will be back here soon with episode 47.